Welcome to the Financial Flossing podcast with Ross Brannon, guiding dental professionals to a brighter future. Ross Brannon is a financial advisor who knows it's not just about your teeth. He helps dental practice owners protect and maximize today's cash flow to plan for tomorrow's cash needs. Find him at rossbrannon.com. On the show, he brings together experts to help dental professionals looking to make smart money decisions to grow their income, turn their retirement goals into reality, and improve their lives. And now, here's your host, Ross Brannon.
Welcome to the show. My guest today is Forrest Bryant. Dr. Forrest Bryant is the CEO of the High Speed Alliance, a registered investment advisory. He's a former dentist and successful business owner. He now provides investment advice, business consulting, and financial planning for high net worth clients all across the U.S. He joins us today on the Financial Flossing podcast. Forrest, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Ross, thank you for having me. I'm excited about doing this. You're one of my favorites to talk about. We always have some really good conversations. So some of that's behind the curtain and not in front of clients. And so we'll see what you want to talk about out on the public line today.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And for those of you who don't know, Forrest and I, we've known each other about 5 years now. And his college roommate is a friend of mine, and we met after Forrest had a little bit of a pivot in life, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But Forrest, can I tell us your background? Kind of what's your story? You're a former dentist. How did you become a dentist? Tell us all about that.
Oh man, I don't like to talk about myself a whole lot. This is painful, but. So I don't know how far back we want to go. Actually, in 8th grade, I actually did my career fair on dentistry. I thought we had a family friend, and I was just always fascinated with dentistry. Kind of lost my way. I thought I might want to, I've always been, one of those type A personalities that I love a good challenge. And, when I went to college, just thought about what's the hardest thing to do. And, I think the hardest thing that was out there for me was it was really space and being an astronaut. So I actually started college in aerospace engineering, and that was kind of what I thought I was going to do. And, that was back in the early 90s. And I had a couple of good friends that had just graduated in aerospace engineering, and they couldn't get a job. And I said, well, gosh, I'm not going to spend 4 or 5 years doing this really super hard major and not be able to get a job. So I changed to environmental engineering, and I did that for a little while and co-opted with EPA actually in Montgomery, Alabama. And I got to see what engineers actually did. And that usually involves sitting behind a desk and, punching away on the computer all day long. And I was just really too much of a people person to, sit behind a desk all day long. So I kind of went back to 8th grade, my my dream of being a dentist. So changed my major into pre-med, pre-dent, and kind of started that process and went to UAB Dental School and had a great time there. We had some great professors and some really great classmates. A lot of those are still some of my very good friends and clients now. And got married and went to a little town, Decatur, Alabama, up in North Alabama, and went into business as an employee and worked my way up to partner and to ownership of that business, and also real estate, which I'm sure we'll come back and talk a little bit about that later on. But everything, we really had a great business, and we really scaled it up, and we did took care of our patients. One thing, there's a lot of overlap, I think, between, medicine and dentistry, and really, being a fiduciary for your clients, for their health and wellness, and, making sure that, you're always doing the right thing for them. That translates into financial planning and wealth management now, where, we're still a fiduciary. We're still trying to do everything that we can and putting clients' needs above ours. So there's, some things that overlap there. But
so you started out as an associate and worked your way up, became a partner, and then eventually bought the owner out.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So was that a challenge? I mean, most people coming out of dental school don't start up just from scratch practice. Talk about the challenge. I mean, how hard was it to go from associate to partner to buying him out?
It's interesting, like going back, my plan was I knew I wanted to be an owner, and I had done a lot of research really on even in dental school, looking to buy practices. I knew the leverage and the speed of buying a practice was much better in that environment than creating one from scratch. So I knew I didn't want to start from scratch. I knew I wanted to buy a practice. And so, looking at a lot of, my dad was in the Marine Corps, so I was got to move around Marine Corps family, and I didn't really have a hometown, I wanted to go back to. So Carol my wife was from a little small town, Decatur, Alabama, and we looked all over the place. We looked at a lot of big cities and fun places to live, and turned out that through some connections I had at the dental school, that this practice in her hometown was one of the best opportunities there. So I knew it was an older dentist, and I knew I would be able to buy that practice down the road, but I had to do my time. I had to start off as an employee. Going back is funny. My first year, I think I made $42,000 my first year working, coming out of dental school. And it was a little bit of just kind of like, the grind and doing your time. It was like, I know it's a great practice and I knew it would be a good thing for me to do. But
what year was that? 42,000, what year?
That was 97.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that was like all of my classmates were making double that or more. So I knew, but I think one thing, and Ross, you might have to help me here just so I know. I like to know who my audience is. I don't know who all listens to I don't know if there's a lot of doctors or dentists or just.
Well, it's mostly dentists. So
well, I think the thing is to have a long-term vision. Like I knew I wanted to be a practice owner, and I knew that I had to do my time. I needed a mentor. I needed somebody who'd been very experienced, and I was willing to learn, and I was willing to work as a W-2 to have that mentorship, to learn, and to hopefully have the opportunity to buy that practice down the road. So, there were some other ways that I could have gone, but I felt like that was the best way for me to minimize my risk and maximize my return in that business environment. So I was willing to put in the time and learn and have a really great mentor.
So how many years were you a W-2?
So I was a W-2, I think, for a year, and then I was a 1099 for probably another year, and then I bought in, I think, a third of the practice. At first, he was 2/3, and I was 1/3 for about a year, and then I bought another 1/6 of the practice. So then we were 50-50 partners, and we practiced that way for about another 7 or 8 years together as partners.
And then you bought him out all the way.
So correct. We got to a point, the coaching and consulting we were getting at that time was really on the partnership model. So in the partnership model, you have a single owner, and then you bring on 2 owners, and then you grow it, and then you bring on a third owner to, grow it up even higher, and then you bring on a fourth. And so it's just, you keep adding partners as the thing grows. And I can remember I was a little hesitant because, I've seen, a lot of horror stories when you get too many chiefs in the kitchen, too many cooks in the kitchen, or, too many chiefs trying to call the shots when you get like this really big convoluted ownership model. And I got to a point where we were actively looking for that third partner. And I was talking with one of the business coaches at the time that was mentoring me. And I remember he asked me a very important question. He said, if this is a good deal for somebody else to buy into your practice, would it be a good deal for you to buy your partner out and have 100% ownership? And I was like, ding, ding, ding. That's it. So that was just, it was so crystal clear for me. That was Bill Blatchford. Thanks, Bill, if you're listening, for helping me there. Changed my trajectory, because at that point I was like, oh yeah, I don't want another partner. I want to own this thing. I want to have control. So I ended up buying out my senior partner. And
what year was this roughly?
That was probably 2002, probably 2004.
So 2004, you're now the sole 100% owner of the practice.
Right.
And so you live in Decatur. Your office is in Huntsville, Alabama, which is...
No, we were still in, we were living in Decatur. We lived in Decatur and had the Decatur practice. And so kind of, once that kind of happened, we started a couple other practices. We started a practice in Huntsville, and we kind of acquired a practice in Madison as well. So really over that time, we ended up having multiple locations, had 3 locations, and got into the, really, I think one of the things that really helped me scale the business was knowing that studying business and knowing that I wanted to be the executive of the practice. I didn't want to be the guy who was doing all of the work every day. I wanted to treat it as a business, and I wanted to scale the business. So, when you're trading, time for dollars, if you're a dentist and you're sitting at the chair, or if you're a medical doctor and you're operating, there's only a certain amount of time that you can spend doing that, and that's what you get paid to do. So, ultimately, in order to really scale the business, you got to have more providers, you got to have more doctors, you got to have more hygienists, you have to have more locations.
So with 3 locations, how many associates did you have working for you?
Probably at any one time, probably 5 to 6.
So you truly, and you and I both work with a lot of dentists. And what I say to a lot of people is there are a lot of dentists out there who basically own a job. They might make $250, $300, great living, but they're a one-person practice and they really own a job. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's just what they are. Then you and I also know some people who are making substantially more than that. And the difference is they're kind of the business owner who just happens to be a dentist. And so for you, you had that mindset where you're like, okay, I'm going to create a business here. I've got 3 offices. I've got 5 associates. You might sit in the chair a little bit every now and then, but you're really running a practice in that scenario.
Yeah. I would encourage your listeners, if they haven't seen the Robert Kiyosaki quadrants, that is, and I didn't know that at the time, but that was my path. So I went from being an employee and, working time for dollars to moving up to the self-employed, where I owned the business, but the business was, totally dependent on me and what I could produce, to, moving into the business owner quadrant, where you have you have a real business you can actually take off. The business can continue to run because you've got, additional providers, and the business can run without the effort of the business owner 100%, to finally the 4th quadrant is the investor quadrant. So that's when you're investing your capital and you are more the executive, and you're getting to make decisions on investments and investing into businesses. And you're truly a CEO where, I run multiple businesses now, and I have a really great team in place. So, that's where, as you kind of move up through those, quadrants, you get to, to the highest level where you're doing what only you can do, and you hire everything else. So I was talking with a young entrepreneur yesterday, and, that was one of the things that I was really trying to impart to him. For young entrepreneurs out there, you shouldn't be going and picking up your laundry. You shouldn't be, running to the bank. You shouldn't be, running errands. You shouldn't be mowing your grass, during the week and spending 4 hours doing that, unless that is therapy for you and that's something that you like to do. But, you should really get to a point where you're doing and you're making the big decisions about really elevating your business and your practice and taking it to the next level, and not being, the worker in the practice.
Yeah, that book, Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, it's a must read for anyone listening who hasn't read it. It's probably 15, 16 years old, if not older, but it's a classic. So things are going well. You're crushing it for all intents and purposes. And then life hits you, punches you in the mouth. Talk about that.
Yeah. So I had kind of a crazy incident where I was operating, and I tore some ligaments and tendons in my elbow. And that kind of just absolutely changed my future at that time, where I ended up having multiple surgeries to try to correct the damage. I ended up with nerve damage in that hand. Afterwards, it never would quite work right. And then I ended up having kind of an autoimmune spiral that kind of generated out of that, where I ended up having a rare neuropathy called MMN, multifocal motor neuropathy, which affected both of my hands and my feet, with peripheral neuropathy, which affects the motor and the sensory nerve. So going through that process and going through multiple surgeries over several years and lots of physical therapy, and it really left me at a place where I was no longer able to practice dentistry. So fortunately, I feel, when I tell the story, I feel so blessed that not only did I have good financial planning in place, and I know that's one thing that you counsel a lot of your doctors and dentist clients. I call it I call it the trifecta, securing your income from a disability insurance standpoint. And that really, for me, is, maxing out your individual disability. That's group long-term disability, and that's also business overhead expense. So fortunately, I had good advice going into that, and I had all three of those in place. And so I think there's a very, very small percentage of doctors and dentists that are business owners that actually have all three of those in place. So that's one of the things. Ross and I work very closely with a lot of our clients. Ross, you do a great job. We appreciate that in working together for our clients in High-Speed Alliance. So we have about 80 clients that are doctors and dentists all around the U.S., and Ross works with most of those. And that's one of the front line things that we try to do. And we've actually had some situations, we won't go into that, but we've, in the over 4 years that we've been doing this together, we've seen, some issues come up where our doctors and dentists have needed that coverage. So it's one of the things that you have to have it in place. You guys spend so much time, effort, knowledge, you got some tremendous skills. And, if you have to protect that and you have to insure that income. So, not only, getting into, life insurance, and we can go deep there because Ross and I love to talk about that as well. And we can make it fun. But I definitely would encourage anybody that's listening to this to talk to Ross, make sure that you have all three of those in place. And if you don't, you really need to step it up. And let me just say this real quick, just while we're on that. One of the big things I see for a lot of our clients is they come out of medical school or dental school and they get an individual disability policy and they think they're good. And so a lot of times those guys come out and, they might have they might start at, $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 in income at that point, and they think they're good. And then, I see a lot of clients that they get an income, some of these guys are making $750,000 to $1 million a year, and they haven't continued to annually review their disability insurance to make sure that they're covered. So I would encourage, if that's you and you have really increased your income and you haven't increased your disability coverage to match, you really need to have a conversation with Ross and let him true that up for you.
Thanks, Forrest. So, this is what year did the elbow issues and the snowball where, this was like, what year did the actual elbow issue happen? Like 07-ish?
Yeah, no, 2011. It's been a decade. Okay. Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been a decade. So at that point, I was not seeing patients. I was not able to do dentistry anymore. So it was, in a way, anytime you have something like really awful happen in your life, there's typically sometimes a blessing and a curse that kind of comes through that. So I wanted to really kind of focus on the blessing. So for me, it was, having the ability to focus on running the practice. And so, during that time, so for 5 years, I continued to manage the practice until we sold. I think it was 2015 or 2016 when we ended up selling all three practices to a private equity group. And that time that I had to focus on the business, I mean, that was part of a blessing. I couldn't have grown it if I was, in the practice working every day. So it gave me the chance to kind of step back and really focus on the business too. Ultimately, we could put ourselves in a position where we could sell that, and I could totally step away. So, had the ability, relatively young age, to, I tell, that's part of what we do with a lot of our clients now is help them scale their businesses and help them exit and, help them with investments and taxes, to kind of go through that process. So I had lived that, and I had the, I guess the street credibility to go along with that. So, having gone through it, gave me a lot of insight to help our clients kind of go through that process now. So, and we've had over a dozen clients that we've helped go through that process. So, we've really gotten, really, really good at that over that time.
When you step back, even though it wasn't, obviously you were already managing the practice, but then obviously life hits you in the face. So you got to manage it even more. How much were you able to grow the business being forced to get out of the chair and be the CEO? How much were you able to grow it that way?
The interesting thing about that is, I think, a lot of dentists and doctors too, typically there's some ego there that they feel like, hey, I'm pretty good. And, my patients love me, and, it's going to be hard to find, somebody else who can do what I do. And, in a way that's true, but I was surprised that focusing on the business. The business continued to grow without me producing and without me, taking care of patients. So, I think that's just really a testimony to really building a good team. And we had some great, incredible dentists that work for us and just a really great team. And I'm, forever grateful for, the team that we put together, all the hygienists and the assistants and the front desk and the doctors that worked for our company during that time. I mean, we really built something special.
So what was the motivating factor to sell it? Were you like, this has been a good run, I'd like to transition to a different phase of my life? Was it, this was on the front end of private equity going nuts over dental practices?
Yeah.
Was it like, okay, these guys are going to pay me an insane number for this, I'm crazy not to do this? What was the motivating factor?
So good question. And I think everybody needs to ask themselves this, if not annually, if quarterly, or maybe even daily, but how much do you enjoy what you're going to do today? And, for me during that time, and I tell a lot of doctors and dentists this, and so I'll repeat it here because I think it's a good point. It seems like there's a lot of doctors and dentists that think that the patient care is drudgery, and that a lot of them get burned out on actually doing the work. And a lot of them think, and there's a lot of coaching programs out there that you really say, oh yeah. And I push it a little bit too, for a little bit different reason, but you can be the executive and not do the dentistry part of it. And so there's a lot of people out there that, if they get burned out, they're like, I don't really want to do the clinical aspect anymore. I want to be the CEO. So, I was kind of forced into that position. And one of the things that I learned was that the joy of being a dentist is really about the patient care. That was what really kind of fulfilled me, was taking, and I did it for almost 20 years. So I got to see, multiple generations come through there. I got to see young kids grow up and go to college and, get a job and get married. And, that's special to be able to, to take care of that. And just that relationship and, having people trust you was something that's very intimate, when there's a lot of choices that they could make, but they chose to see us. And so that was the fulfilling part. And so moving really to the executive side, I wasn't interacting with the patients. And so that part of it, I had to, on the HR side, we were hiring doctors, we were hiring front desk and hygienists and team. Sometimes you had to fire, you had to constantly work on keeping the team motivated. You had to do the marketing, you have to do the accounting, all of these like business operations. And I really got to a point where I just wasn't having fun.
Yeah, it's not near as sexy when you're doing the stuff behind the scenes, right?
Yeah. I mean, the money was good, but I kind of got to a point where I was like, once it became really clear that you're not going back to practice in dentistry, what do you, is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? And so that was, for me, that was an easy, like, I'm not having that much fun. I mean, I could have been like, I could go out and buy 10 practices or 20 practices or, go out and buy a whole bunch of practices. But I was like, it's pretty complex at 3, and going to 10 is just going to make, I think I just felt like, I'm going to be more miserable doing that. And for me, it was the right time to exit and let somebody else, try to work on taking it to the next level. And I wanted to do something else. So, I think for a lot of our guys, we have a discussion, going through that first exit is amazing. So for a lot of our guys, we have a lot of clients that are fairly young in their 40s and 50s that actually have an opportunity just because of the the crazy amount of private equity dollars that are coming into the dental space right now. So a lot of them have an opportunity to take a first exit, and then they get to ask themselves this question, which is such a small percentage of entrepreneurs get to ask themselves this question is I've got money and I've got time, and, who do I want to help and what do I want to do? And what kind of impact do I want to make? What kind of purpose, why do I want to do, these things going forward, and who do I want to really make an impact for? So kind of once I went through that process, I mean, I got really excited about, going to the next level and being able to really have a major impact on our clients. And so, a lot of, really felt like I've made a big difference in the lives of my patients when I was practicing dentistry, but I feel like our purpose and our why is so much bigger now, where we're making some multi-generational impact on our clients now, where, I mean, we're making some big moves for them. And we just get to see that on just kind of an accelerated timeline where generationally changing their future. And so, for us, that's really rewarding, where we get to have that kind of impact. Other than, it was great when you get to do a veneer case or get to full mouth reconstruction and somebody's, you restore their function and you restore their aesthetics and they're really happy and they're hugging your neck. I mean, that's great. But getting to transform somebody's future and then the generations following that, it just is, is just really pretty phenomenal.
So you sell your practice, and that's about the time you and I met, and you're pivoting to your next move. You always have been very forward thinking financially, always been very financially minded and very astute financially. So you start the High Speed Alliance kind of as a leap of faith. And I was there when you started, and I remember what that was like. And compared to where it is now, it's grown leaps and leaps and bounds. So talk about, because it's a little bit different animal than what I do or what some of the advisors you dealt with before, without going into too many details because compliance. Just talk a little bit about the transition from Forrest Bryant, the dentist, to Forrest Bryant, the investment advisor, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that.
So, I think, on the compliance standpoint, we are a registered investment advisor. We're FINRA registered. So we're certainly in a very highly compliant ocean, I guess, same as you are. And I guess you got to put that out there. And then I guess we could just throw a little disclaimer.
We're not going to talk about any specific investments or anything like that. But
specific investment. And I will also say this. So if you're listening and you're not one of my clients, do make sure you have your advisor who you trust with your money and your finances and your future. So don't take anything I said here today and go make any changes without running it.
This is all for educational purposes. There's no advice being given. So, but so you were like, you've seen a lot and you were real successful. You said, all right, you know what? I think I can build a better mousetrap. Let me go do this. Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to have my own capital to look at investments, and I'd always been drawn to alternative investments. We'd always done a lot of real estate, and we'd always looked at different types of operating businesses and other types of investments that you could look into, and I did a lot of research on multi-generational wealthy families. I'll use the term family offices. So, when we use that term, if we think about the Rockefellers or the Vanderbilts or the Carnegies, the Hiltons, or, some of these multi-generational families, and, really did a lot of studying. Not really at the beginning, it was for personal benefit. I wanted to know, because I wanted to continue to grow my wealth. And I wanted to ultimately help our clients, but I was trying to learn, what can I learn from these families who've been doing this for a long time, and also, how can I avoid, some of the pitfalls there, like the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves mantra, where wealth is lost in multiple generations. So, I was trying to learn what family offices do. And so I really realized that there was this really big gap. If you look at family offices, and I'll define that as usually a family that's over $100 million to up to multiple $1 billion. If you're in that family office space, you're not going to, if you've got 500 million, you probably love a guy like Ross, but you're probably not going to go to Ross and say, hey, Ross, here's $100 million. Will you take care of this for me? That's typically not the way that family offices operate. So typically what they'll do, if you've got that much money, you're going to go hire your own Ross. You're going to have a chief investment officer that works for you. You're going to have some analysts, some economists. You're going to have your own CPA. You're going to have your own CEO. You're going to build a business around managing that wealth. So, and they may have, if you've got $100 million, $500 million, you may, building a business like that probably might have an overhead. They might spend $1 million a year on overhead just to manage that money. And so I knew there was a lot there to learn. And so I looked at, okay, so, this is what I want. This is what my clients want. And so on the other side, we've got our clients that, our typical client is usually anywhere between maybe a $1 million in net worth up to probably a $20 million net worth. So that's kind of the realm of who we work with. And so, I realized that those services and those investment opportunities, there was no link between them. These guys needed the types of investments that this group was doing, the family offices are doing here. They need access to this type of research. They need access to these types of investments. They need these resources. They need this mindset, these strategies, but it just doesn't exist. And so High Speed Alliance was really my effort to try to connect this together to really what we call it a multifamily office that serves and caters to U.S. doctors and dentists. So that's really what we try to do. So we bridge the gap between what the family offices are doing and what our clients are doing that are under typically under the $20 million net worth.
So instead of the guy who's worth $200 million, who has a family office or like the Gates or someone like that, or, you said, well, there's this unserved gap of people kind of, people in the 10, you've taken it all the way to $1 million, but we know for a fact, the data says kind of the 10 to 50 million is an underserved net worth gap for a handful of reasons. And you're like, okay, let me create something that's the best of both worlds. So instead of having these people don't have enough money to create their own family office, so I'm going to create a family office that serves these 80 families and growing and gives them access to these different things because you have a knack for this. You like the alternative investments, which, obviously, many times there's limitations on net worth for those types of things. And obviously it's proven successful for you because in 4 years, you've gone from 0 to 80 clients, which is fantastic. So what kind of advice would you give to someone? I'm going to ask you two different pieces of advice. First advice is someone listening who's never met you, never met me, and they're a successful dentist. And then the second one is a fresh graduate from dental school. What advice would you give to both of them?
Probably not that dissimilar. One of the things that I say a lot is invest early and invest often. So even if you were right out of school, you guys are probably, it's not new now, but back in the day, there was a big controversy about, dentists coming out or doctors like with student debt. And, what's the best thing to do? Should you pay down your student debt and then start investing, or should you start investing early? And so, the math doesn't lie. And so, I'm a really, really big fan of using smart leverage. So, using that low interest rate for good debt, education debt, I consider good debt. You're invested in yourself. Anything you can do to invest in yourself is good debt. So, whether that's, getting an education or getting a coaching program or a consulting program, anything that you can do to make yourself better and to get there faster is really good. So, you can do that, but you got to start investing early. So get with somebody like Ross and, start off. Roth IRA is in one of the best places where you can start off if you're under the income limit to start cranking in money. That's $6,000 a year that you can get into your Roth IRA. I'd say that's really huge. Either one, you got to start investing early. And, this is one thing that, I love to talk about. Most dentists, their eyes roll back in their head when you start talking about life insurance, but permanent life insurance, starting very, very early is something that we see a lot of our clients that haven't done it and and rightly so, there's a lot of people that do abuse it in the medical and dental space. Ross is not one of those guys. So totally trust Ross with our clients' futures. But if you are young, and even if you're old, it just costs more. But if you've got time on your side, absolutely get invested in permanent life insurance. Your cost of insurance is much lower when you're younger, and you also have the benefit of multiple decades of allowing that to compound and take advantage of the beautiful dividends that the permanent life insurance companies are making, and the big mutual companies, mutual life insurance companies like Ross represents. have been paying dividends for over 150 years. So, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And I think that is that's a missing piece for a lot of clients. And we see the benefit of, clients that have been doing that for a long period of time. And you can be conservative with your investments when you look at, a kind of a broad spectrum. And that's one piece. And we consider that an asset on your book, that cash value that just pops up every single month, that just goes up, and that can give you some ability to leverage that later on in order to do some investing as well. So when that's getting into kind of the 201 or the 301 course, but we can go there if you want to.
So almost out of time here. So I have two last questions for you. Do you have a good book recommendation? Anything you read recently?
Oh, gosh. I think one thing for entrepreneurs, this is probably out there, but Traction by Gino Wickman. I mean, if you're,
that's an EOS book.
Yep. That's a really good one for any entrepreneur out there. That's a good one. I think readers are leaders. And, I think you guys can't read enough. Listen to some great podcasts like Ross's. I'd welcome, we do live events, Ross. So, if clients want to get in touch with us, I'd say, go through Ross and he can make a connection. If you're a doctor or dentist and you're a business owner, we'd love to help you.
Well, that's actually my last question is if people want to connect with you, how do they connect with you?
Our website is highspeedalliance.com. So you can go on there, and I think we've got a connect with us place on there. So we do live events quarterly. Ross is usually there. If you want to hang out with both of us, come see us. But highspeedalliance.com is the best place to do that.
Well, fantastic. Well, Forrest, I really appreciate your time today. For your listeners, this has been Forrest Bryant with the High Speed Alliance. You've been listening to the Financial Flossing Podcast with Ross Brannon. Thanks again.
This has been another episode of Financial Flossing with Ross Brannon, guiding dental professionals to a brighter future. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. For more on Ross Brannon, visit rossbrannon.com.
Registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS. OSJ 3664 Coolidge Court, Tallahassee, Florida 32311, 850-562-9075. Securities products and advisory services offered through PAS. Member FINRA SIPC. Financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PAS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. North Florida Financial is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. California Insurance License Number 0L10073. Arkansas Insurance License Number 161-39032. 2021 119535. Expires 423. That last part can also say 2021 119535. Expiration April 2023.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by PAS, Guardian, or North Florida Financial, and opinions stated are their own. Ross is a registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS, OSJ 3664 Coolidge Court, Tallahassee, Florida 32311, 850-562-9075. Securities products and advisory services offered through PAS, member FINRA SIPC, financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PAS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. North Florida Financial is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Arkansas Insurance License Number 161-39032. California Insurance License Number 0L10073. 2021-126-306. Expiration 0923.